What's up, everyone? Pags here at MEI Studio, and this week we're going to look at one of the biggest and heaviest mics to come out in a long time. This week we're looking at the Warm Audio WA44. There seems to be a line in the internet sandbox of people that stand on one side or the other when it comes to warm audio. I did a quick history on the company when we did our WA44 SDC video, so there's no need to go back over that. But that video kind of explains what Warm is all about and why they do what they do. While I stand on pretty neutral ground, there is one thing that I see often, and it's people saying that warm audio gear isn't clone gear. And I'll be honest with you, I have to agree with that statement, even though when it's said in forums and other places, it's meant to have negative connotations. The warm audio equipment I've used has been, well, useful, and it gets you in the ballpark of a specific sound with specific functionality that's in the vein of the classic gear it's trying to emulate. By no means are their circuits in their hardware part-for-part copies of the originals, and in some cases, the circuits are vastly different than the quote-unquote original. So, while it's true that the gear isn't a clone per se, it's still very useful gear, and it gets some real analog gear into the hands of many who would normally never be able to afford those tools. When it comes to their microphones, it's pretty much the same story. They're the spirit and vibe of the mics that they're based off of, while putting their own twist on it. By no means are the components subpar on anything of theirs that I've used, and I've had my hands on a number of their mics and hardware units. I myself build gear for the studio based on classic circuits, and while I've sometimes gone out of my way to get original spec parts, I have enough knowledge about electronics and microphones for that matter to recognize modern quality parts when I see them. Cinemag is the transformer of choice for many, if not all, of Warm's designs. They're also one of my transformers of choice for a lot of the gear that I build as well. The company's been around forever, basically, and was one of the companies that built the transformers for a lot of the old gear we're copying circuits from in the first place. It's what's inside of our video's subject today, and if I know anything about David at Cinemag, he put together a transformer that probably would be right at home in an original RCA44. Speaking of which, since this mic is named after the RCA44 and looks and feels just like it as well, let's take a quick look at the history of that mic before we get to the listening tests. Disclosure, this mic was not sent to me by Warm, it was purchased by the studio, and we're not affiliated with Warm in any way. I usually don't bother with this type of disclaimer, but there are those out there that like to make unfounded accusations, and being I don't have an opinion on the mics I review, makes no sense to me. Use your ears, make your own decisions. The RCA44A was released all the way back in 1933. It was slightly smaller than the later versions of the mic and featured a not-so-powerful magnet resulting in a low output. The ribbon was and is still considered a big ribbon in that its length is around 60 millimeters long. In 1936, the 44B was released that was larger in size and featured a stronger magnet as well that resulted in, you guessed it, higher output. Let's remember this concept for later. 2 years later, in 1938, the RCA44BX was released, which was essentially the same mic, but had its cable connection changed up a bit. The ribbon was also seated towards the back a little bit more, causing the mic to have a smaller pickup pattern from the rear of the mic than it did from the front. The BX also featured a voicing adjustment by changing what wires were connected to what pins on the output board of the mic. There's a little panel on the bottom of it. A user could roll off some of the low end at the mic, allowing vocalists to be able to get closer to the mic without overloading the bottom end. This is before preamps had high-pass filters. The mic has been in use in radio, television, movies, and mainly now just the studio since its inception to this day. An RCA44BX on the open market commands an impressive four-figure sum in almost any condition. Recently, I saw one on the market that was missing the yoke, the grills, and the bar that holds the grills together, going for thousands. But why? Besides the cool nostalgia factor, it's a typical early to mid-century dark ribbon mic, one certainly can't rule out the cool factor in its looks. After all, when someone mentions the word microphone, one of three images usually pops into just about anyone's head. This, and this. While the technology is certainly what many would consider outdated, especially by modern standards, the mic still has a certain sound to it that can be described as full, warm, and rich. Maybe a bit too warm. By many accounts, the 44 and its cousin the 77 were pretty much the king of early broadcast. The mic's proximity effect gave on-air personalities a booming sound that was larger than life. How Bing Crosby made a career out of working the 44. The rolled-off highs on most of these mics, even in perfect working order, often seems a bit much for modern vocal purposes. However, the mic does take to EQ really well, and if given a bit of high shelf, you can get some pretty decent fidelity out of the mic. So, being that the original mic weighed in at around 8 pounds, and its sound isn't something that's considered modern by any stretch, why would someone want to recreate this in 2024? It's freaking cool, that's why. Warm Audio took this classic and put their modern twist on it. They kept the dimensions of the mic relatively the same. The Warm is slightly bigger than the RCA. They used the 44BX cable mounting mechanics, but left out the voicing options. Most modern preamps now have high-pass filters built in, but I'd have liked to have seen it done. The potential for a future mic mod, maybe. Who knows? Anyway, instead of the magnets being iron or alnico, they decided to go with the modern-day powerhouse, the neodymium magnet. They kept the basic structure of the ribbon motor the same and used a ridiculously powerful neodymium magnet at the top and the bottom of these structures to give the motor the field that the ribbon needs to create an electrical signal. The strength of these magnets means that the output is a bit higher than the original. I said we'd come back to that again. Because the magnets don't have to be as big as what was in the RCA version and the new transformers here are a little bit more compact, the weight on this mic is reduced a bit down to a mere 6.2 pounds. This is by far the heaviest mic we now have in the studio, and it needs a really sturdy stand to keep it up with a solid counterweight on the boom arm. Like the original, the body and grill are quite resonant. It's a sheet metal body and grill. I mean, I'd expect no less. I mean, if you're playing with a band and using this thing for some reason live, vibrations can find their way up the stand and cause the mic to ring a little bit, so maybe not a great live mic there. 6.2 pounds, who wants to carry that around? The mic comes with an incredibly robust mic case that stores the mic in the proper upright position. Ribbons should not be stored with the ribbon horizontal, as it can cause the ribbon to sag over time, which will change the mic's sound, and the only way to fix this is to either have the ribbon retensioned, if that's even possible, or have the ribbon replaced. So, besides vocals, what kind of action would this mic see in a studio setting? Well, pretty much anything. From guitar cabinets to piano to drum room and overheads, this mic can set a vibe pretty quickly. As I mentioned before, the downside of this is the need for a really sturdy mic stand. The size of the mic makes it a bit hard to position as well. I mean, the thing is over 1 foot long, and that's without a 90-degree attachment that you'd need to hang this from a boom. Another thing I would have liked to have seen included with the mic, but I can imagine that Warm is not wanting to be responsible for people trying to hang this mic from one of those thin on-stage stands. Recipe for disaster. If you do pick up one of these mics, be sure you either already have or budget for something with an extremely wide or heavy bass and a well-counterbalanced boom arm. This is probably not going to fly on one of those thin podcaster boom arms either. Again, 6.2 pounds. Let's take this into the studio and put it up against a RCA 44 and see how close Warm got. Let's get to it. This is the Warm Audio WA44, about 8 inches from my mouth. This is the WA44, about 1 foot from my mouth. This is the Warm Audio WA44, 2 feet from my mouth. If I get close to the Warm Audio WA44, this is how it sounds. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled pizzas. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled pizzas. Simple Simon said something stupid. Simple Simon said something stupid. This is me speaking into the warm audio WA44 with no effects, no compression. This is me speaking into the warm audio WA44 with a high shelf engaged. This is the WA44 0 degrees on axis. This is the WA44 90 degrees off axis. This is the WA44 180 degrees off axis. This is the WA44 90 degrees off axis. And back to 0 degrees on axis.
I woke up with pride, oh, staring at me. Daggers for eyes, it wants me to bleed. But I'm all yours. This weight on me is taking off, oh, 'cause I believe. So I said, Lord, set me free one more time, 'cause I can't see, oh, I can't see.
Woke up with pride, staring at me. Daggers for eyes, you don't want me to bleed. But I'm all yours. This weight's on me. It's taking off, 'cause I believe. So I say, Lord, set me free one more time, 'cause I can't see. Oh, yeah, yeah, I can't see. Oh, hey, yeah, yeah.
And boom goes the dynamite. What did you think? Did Warm get in the ballpark? Did this mic give that vintage vibe to the sources that we captured? Let me know what you think in the comments below. I've had my eye on a 44BX for quite some time. There are more than a couple of engineer friends of mine that think I'm absolutely crazy for that, but it's just one of those things that kind of helps to complete my collection of cool-looking mics. We have another one coming up in the collection soon. The original 44s, no doubt, sound really smooth. However, the problem is, according to people that own multiple specimens of them, none of them sound the same. They all sound good, but they all sound slightly different, and that's been my experience in the past as well. Finding two that are close enough are a treat to find to use as a stereo pair, which I have to say, being that we only had the RCA and Warm a few inches apart, using those two in a stereo configuration still sounded fine to my ears. Even though there's a bit of tonal difference between them, really didn't matter too much, but that difference is probably no more or less different than any two original 44s are from each other. I have some friends that between them own 5 of the original RCAs, which they pretty much say the same thing that I've been saying here. They're different. For $1,000, a quality large ribbon mic with a proper storage case is a pretty decent deal. Even if it sounded nothing like the original on its own, it still sounds like a really nice large ribbon mic. Nice forward mid-range, huge bottom, and a nice rolled off top end that takes EQ like a champ. In summary, I'm not calling this a clone since it doesn't try to exactly recreate the original mic. The motor and magnets are different, the transformer is different, the grill material is slightly different, but it's a big ribbon mic. There's not much to it. Magnets, ribbon, transformer, cable. That's it. The body and grill are dimensionally close, which will make the internal reflections very similar, which will make the mic sound very similar to the original as well. The output is considerably hotter on the Warm audio, which is nice for those that don't have a pre that has a ton of gain. If the look and sound of this mic is something you've always wanted to get your hands on, like me, the Warm Audio WA44 is certainly something to consider. If you've gotten anything from today's video, please hit that like and subscribe button. If you're into studio equipment, mics, and all things audio, hit that notify button so you'll be notified when we put up a new video. If you have any questions about this video, or if you have a suggestion for another video, please leave a message in the comments section. If you'd like to discuss something with me in private, hit me through the website. I'd love to hear from you. Well, that's going to do it for this time. This is Pags, signing off.